Hi everyone, Emily Yates here from PHP Health and Benefits. I'm here to do a webinar for you all called Burnout and Mental Fatigue and what to do about it. And before I start the webinar, I just want to tell a little story that relates to this webinar. So the morning my boss called me to do this, I had just finished having like a slight meltdown on my poor little cute 8-year-old boy, Bodie, because he had gone down to 7-Eleven without my permission to buy candy with his friends, and he knows during this pandemic that's just an absolute no-no. And so I had just finished getting mad at him, and I was feeling really guilty about that because a part of me knows he's not being supervised maybe the way he should with me and my husband working from home. And so I get this call from my boss saying this group wants you to create a webinar for them on burnout and working from home. And I just started laughing and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need a webinar on burnout and working from home. And so it was a really great time for me to kind of self-reflect and figure out where I was in this process. So after some reflection, I came to the conclusion that since the beginning of the pandemic, I've been flying by the seat of my pants. In other words, I think I had been running on adrenaline. I think a lot of this was caused from the fear of the unknown with the pandemic and working from home and what the consequences will be long term. And then in the back of my head, I was thinking I didn't think it would be over by the end of summer. I thought it would be better. And now we're here, it's August, and it's getting a little better, but it's still not great. And so I think the way I had been operating kind of on this adrenaline-based fear mode, for me, for sure, the cracks were starting to show, and that this was resulting in symptoms of burnout, stress, and I think the biggest symptom for me was just overall exhaustion. So after my period of self-reflection, it was time to just look into the research, see what experts are saying about this pandemic and working from home. And there's just not a lot of research on it right now. There will be, but right now there's not a ton. So I switched gears and I focused my attention on different opinion pieces. And I found this really great article from Bloomberg. And the title is, Why Are You Panic Working? And it was written by a professor, medical doctor, and psychiatrist. So I think this guy knows what he's talking about. And he noticed at the beginning of the pandemic, himself and colleagues were panic working, is how he described it, or obsessively trying to be productive. And he states that this need to plow through work is something psychoanalysts refer to as a manic defense. I really like how he puts this. I think it really resonates with the times. He says, like all defenses, the obsession with staying productive is a source of dubious comfort. It sustains the pretense that if we work hard enough, we can hold on to the world we once knew. And I think this is so true. It's really normal we would be panic working right now because we feel this uncertainty, we feel this like lack of control, and it's really common to hold on to what we can control when we feel out of control. But the author goes on to state how this panic working, it's just not serving us. This type of manic defense, it's diluting, it dilutes us, and it can turn into sabotage. So rather than making any advances, we're actually hindering any progress we hope to achieve. And also what happens when we're overworked is we have this false belief that any momentum is good momentum. So for like, oh, I sat in front of my desk for 10 hours, I must have got a lot of work done. Maybe you didn't. So without a strategy, we're running ourselves in circles and we're wearing ourselves thin. But overworking, it's a thing right now. I found a study and it was analyzing server activity from a fairly large VPN network, and they found that the average workday for Americans has increased 3 hours a day. And they also reported some self-report data from some of these workers, and they're feeling this need to be reached at all times. And I think this makes a lot of sense. In this new situation, employees and employers, we're establishing a new type of trust. I think we feel this sense of insecurity. We want to prove to coworkers and our boss we're actually working. We're not just like playing video games or hanging out or whatever. And this also makes sense because in workplace wellness, one of the biggest indicators of employee satisfaction is actually trust. So just that feeling is really important in a job. But this wanting to prove ourselves and to be trusted by our employers is making it really hard for us to mentally detach from work. And the outcome of overworking, it's not great. It's already definitely attributing to burnout. According to a recent Monster survey I found, 50% of us are already experiencing burnout from work, and 52% of us were not taking any plans to decompress or take a vacation, whatever. It's already impacting our mental health, and a lot of us are experiencing this heavy workload being a tremendous stressor. So, as so many of us could be experiencing feelings of burnout, I want to talk about what burnout is. It's one of those kind of big umbrella terms that can mean a lot. So according to WHO, burnout is conceptualized as a resulting feeling of chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. And it has three dimensions to it. So the first is feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion. The second is increased mental distancing from one's jobs or feelings of negativism or cynicism. And then lastly, reduced professional efficacy. Some of the causes of burnout, this list really is funny to me because every single factor is completely related to COVID. So lack of control, unclear job expectations, dysfunctional workplace dynamics, extremes of activity, lack of social support, and work-life imbalance. So you can see why normal causes of burnout would be very emphasized by COVID-19. Symptoms of burnout, I don't think I need to read through this whole list. I think there's three critical things if you are finding you're being very cynical, negative about every aspect of your job. That is not a great sign. Second, if you find your productivity is really being effective, if you can't concentrate, get projects done, that type of thing. And lastly, if you're finding you can't let go of your job after work, and you're still feeling stress, anxiety, or whatever, and so you have to turn to some unhealthy coping skill like strategies, things like maybe overindulging and drinking alcohol or eating or watching too much TV or lashing out on loved ones. So you might see burnout reflected in some bad behavior maybe. And then lastly, some of the physical symptoms. So maybe you're not sleeping as much, sleeping too much, or sleeping too little. Or maybe you're feeling some physical symptoms like headaches, stomach problems, or aches and pains. Those can be a big sign something's wrong with your mental health if you're feeling physically ill. So I really quickly want to talk about this other term I've been reading about in relationship to COVID-19, and this is mental fatigue. And mental fatigue is a psychological state caused by prolonged cognitive activity. And so in other words, this is just basically overworking our brains, and then it can manifest in lower productivity, irritability, brain fog, and decreased physical energy. And normally mental fatigue was caused by things like constant decision making, overcommitting, procrastinating, lack of sleep, that type of thing. But in this unique moment we're all in right now, we could all be experiencing some level of mental fatigue due to incessant social media or news exposure. The news has been dark recently. The months of social unrest we've been experiencing, and the news on COVID-19 every day is still not great. And also this hypervigilance due to coronavirus. I mean, everyday simple decisions tend to be hard and have consequences. And this is leading to another term I've been reading about called decision fatigue. And this is a phenomenon by which the more decisions we have to make in a day, the harder each one is on your brain. And this can result and can contribute to mental fatigue. This is going to be, of course, exacerbated by COVID-19. And like I said, our simple everyday decisions are hard and have consequences. This is exhausting. It's who should I see? Who should I not see? Where should I go shopping? Where should I not go shopping? What activities should I engage in? What activities should I not engage in? These used to be decisions that were pretty, like we didn't even think about them, and now we have to put a lot of thought in them because there's actually consequences to every decision we make right now. So we do have to put that mental energy into our decisions. And of course, let's not forget our minds and our bodies. They're very connected. They're always talking to one another and feeding off of one another. And so if your brain is feeling really tired and exhausted, it's going to be sending that message to your body. So mental fatigue can definitely have a negative impact on our energy levels and also our endurance. And this is due, like I was talking about, it's a shift in our perception. So like you're feeling tired, it's just you're going to be sending off kind of some of those hormones, neurotransmitters, stress hormones to your body, telling your body it's tired also. And then your body does feel tired. And this is going to make physical tasks harder than they appear. I know there's been times I'm tired after doing the dishes, and this isn't like a normal thing for me. And so just keep in mind, if you're feeling really exhausted and tired and lethargic, it could kind of have to do with some of this just general mental exhaustion, burnout, fatigue. It's all related. Now I want to talk about different ways we can deal with mental fatigue and burnout. And I think it's really important to start discussing this topic on an organizational level. Too often in health, I think we're guilty of focusing solely on the individual, and we forget the context in which the individual is actually in, which makes a huge impact. So as an organization, you have a lot of responsibility to recognize that these are stressful and unusual circumstances for everyone. Therefore, risks for fatigue and burnout are going to be increased. So I think it's important to somehow create a culture of safety and acceptance with some type of clear coordination and communication between management and workers. And then from there, maybe create some procedure or policy that does not punish workers when they're honest and when they're reporting they are experiencing feelings of burnout or fatigue or exhaustion. And then build it into team camaraderie and set an example as management or people who have decision-making power, that how we can support one another and lead by example. And so now the rest of this, we're going to kind of talk about how to deal with mental fatigue and burnout, working from home, all of that on an individual level. So first of all, let's just think about it like this. We're finding ourselves very outside of normal, old, predictable structures we were used to before. And so we need to develop a new way of doing things that are more planned and predictable. And this is going to help us with mental fatigue. And I just need to say this quote. I love this quote. Insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. I think this is the time right now to think creatively. And I think the people who are going to come out of this pandemic successfully are those people who were able to kind of think outside of the box and kind of figure out how to do their life in maybe a slightly different way that worked for them. So one way we can do this is we can create a routine. We know from the science that people who have routines and structure in their day are actually very efficient, successful people, and there's a reason for that. Routines help us with structure and predictability, and in this moment, that's really going to help cutting down on distractions, which can be a big challenge working from home, and this is going to give us more time and energy to focus on more important things. Routines actually also help us, become more accountable. If you just think in your head, I'm going to, do my life different and everything's going to work out better in this pandemic, it's not going to happen. You have to actually visualize, write down, do something mentally, and kind of create this routine for yourself. But be careful to give yourself and those you live with space and some flexibility to make sure to meet the needs of everyone and avoid being too rigid. So I kind of came up with this little, I'm calling it an integrative daily routine, and there's two different areas. So the first area, these are kind of our everyday tasks. These are our home duties, things like cleaning, cooking, taking care of our kids and taking care of our pets. And then we have our work duties, and this is going to be establishing a start time, establishing a break, establishing an end time. And then we have our second areas. This is kind of the second area, which kind of relates more to taking care of yourself. And so I call this area life skills, because maybe there's some skills within this area you need to work on, or self-care. It's just taking care of ourselves. So first of all, we have to take care of our physical selves by getting proper sleep, eating whole nutritious foods, getting some movement in our day, keeping hydrated, and just personal upkeep kind of stuff. And then we also need to take really, really good care of our emotional and mental selves right now. And this is going to be done by engaging in activities like mindfulness, learning how to relax, connecting with other people, or engaging in meaningful activities, things like hobbies and stuff like that. If you are interested and you think a routine might help you, I think it's really beneficial to, at night, when you're relaxed, jot down your ideal day. And while you're doing this, think of ways to incorporate different household duties in your work time and self-care. And it's really important also while you're doing this to coordinate with others, include everyone in the family. How can we make the day flow better for everyone? And while you're doing this, remember, baby steps. You don't have to overhaul your whole day or your whole life. Incorporating just some of the elements I spoke about in the previous slide, even a few days a week, will actually make a huge difference in how you feel if you actually follow through with them. So let's talk about home time duties for a moment. Are any of you guys feeling overwhelmed by constant cleaning? I know I am. If I see another fork, I'm going to vomit. I've never done as many dishes in my life as I have done during this pandemic. So as I said, we're living in our homes differently in the way that our workspace has completely invaded our living space. So we kind of need to be a little more organized in how we deal with the two different, areas we're trying to work on. I think this can be a really productive thing to do. Just if your home life is bugging you, just your house, just think about specifically what is bothering you about your space. I know it's really hard to sit down and be productive in work if your home feels kind of crazy and chaotic. So just think about it. Is it just like the general cleanliness of your home? Things like your bathrooms are dirty, dust, vacuuming, that type of thing? Or are you feeling overwhelmed with the laundry? That's the whole task of washing and folding and putting away. Or is it meal planning, shopping, cooking, cleanup? So just think a minute, jot down out of all these kind of different home tasks, what's bothering you right now. Once you've decided what's bothering you about your home and your space, it's really important to consider who you're living with. If you do live with others, if they're helping, I don't think it's fair in this situation for one person to kind of carry the burden of all the picking up and cleaning and everything involved with that. And also, it's actually just not sustainable at all for one or even two people to be doing all of the work if you have children. So think of this as a group effort. And one thing you can do maybe is just call a house meeting, and within the family or whatever your home life situation is, set a standard and decide, are we going to divide or conquer? So what I mean by that, are we going to clean just 2 specific mornings a week, or are we going to assign tasks throughout the week? Or maybe just one major cleaning day every week where you just get everything done. And then it's really important to rotate through less desirable tasks and then make a calendar of some sort to hold everyone accountable. And then for those of you with kids, I just figured this out a couple weeks ago. I can't believe I didn't catch on to this sooner, but no technology until like the house is clean. It works really well. Now I want to talk about creating some routine in your workday. One thing I found in some of the research I did was people are reporting mornings being the hardest part of working from home. So if you can, maybe you should consider starting later in the morning, or maybe logging on a little earlier and then giving yourself an hour in the morning just to kind of get a few things done. And what this is going to do is help you deal with potential distractions before you start your day, so you can get centered in the morning and just focus on your work. And if you're finding you're having a hard time focusing on your work or having a hard time with distractions, one thing you can do is set a timer, maybe 50 minutes at a time, and you're really disciplined in that you're not looking at your phone, you're not looking at the news, you're not playing video games or whatever it is you do. You're just working. And then once that timer goes off, give yourself 10 minutes to do whatever you want. And this is going to get you in the habit of working smarter, not harder. And also, if you're trying to create some routine in your work day, block out non-work times. And when you are engaging in these non-work times, you're really disconnecting from work. So you're going for a walk, you're hanging out with your kids, you're connecting with a friend, or doing some light housework, stuff like that. And then lastly, it's really important as a team to maybe agree on a firm end of day time. So it's 6 o'clock, everyone logs out, unless it's a complete emergency, don't send out an email. And this is just going to help create some respect and boundaries within your team. And then lastly, I just think it's all really important to remember while working from home to forgive yourself and give yourself a break. I know we all have those days where we do feel like it's really hard to be productive and, not get too sucked into the distractions. And while you're trying to forgive yourself, acknowledge, I've said this a few times, these are extraordinary times, and don't act like any of this is normal, and act as you did before. Learn how to accept the distress and the disorientation involved with all of this. And then lastly, it's really important to reach out and speak honestly to our colleagues. This is going to help you feel useful. It's going to help build compassion in you, which just makes us feel better. And it's also going to help decrease some of the cynicism I was talking about. So now I want to talk about countering mental exhaustion and burnout by practicing resilience. So I studied resiliency a lot in my master's program, and one thing I don't think we talk about enough when we talk about resiliency is it has a lot to do with cultivating positive energy, positive emotions in our lives when we're experiencing change, rather than depleting our energy. And energy is a very valuable commodity right now. So I want to differentiate between resiliency and resilience. So resiliency is actually the process and experience of being disrupted by change. And in the aftermath, hopefully we come stronger. And right now I think we're definitely all in the resiliency process. Resilience, on the other hand, these are the skills, the motivators, the practices we have in our life that are going to get us through the resiliency process. And it's really important to note that all of us individually, we are all resilient. It's just that we have different ways to cope, and we have a varying degree of life skills. But one thing we do know from the science and research is we can all learn the skills to become resilient. And actually part of who we are, part of just being human, is to recognize what it is for you that gets you through the resiliency process, so we can recover and grow in challenging times like these. Okay, so how do we recover and grow during times of change? And the biggest thing we can do when we're experiencing change is actually just taking really good care of ourselves. But this is taking care of our minds and our bodies and our souls. And this is going to give us the mental capacity and energy to move forward every day. And we do this by practicing some of the life skills and self-care I talked about before, but any skill needs to be practiced. So for the duration of this webinar, I want you all to think, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? And maybe focus on one skill you can incorporate into your daily routine. I want to talk a little bit about taking care of ourselves physically. I think too often, this has a lot to do with diet culture and just a very capitalist society. We view physical health in terms of a measurable outcome. Things like losing weight or getting a six-pack or whatever it is for you. And in that process, we tend to forget that when we sense the body needs nutritious food, movement, rest, hydration, what we're actually doing is giving the body the necessary energy to deal with life while countering some of these feelings of exhaustion and burnout. One of the greatest things we can do for ourselves when we are experiencing change or maybe feeling some anxiety or depression is exercise. We know from decades of research, exercise can improve our energy level and reduce stress and tension. And it's basically about those endorphins. It's just a natural drug. It's a natural high. They make us feel better. I recommend you try to incorporate some movement into your day for 20 or 30 minutes. And this can be walking. I think going on a walk is maybe one of the most underestimated workouts right now. It can be cleaning your house. It can be going for a hike. Whatever it is you like to do to move your body, just try to do it 20 to 30 minutes a day. But remember, try to do something you like. No need to do the torture chamber exercise because you won't continue doing it. I think diet's another area where we think of it just more in terms of, how the food we eat contributes to weight loss or weight gain. And in that process, we tend to forget that what we eat actually really can impact the way we feel, both physically and mentally. And there's plenty of research that has shown that good nutrition and healthy diet are associated with better well-being and mental health outcomes. And one reason for this is just it's a simple blood sugar crash when you go without eating, or if you're not really getting the nutrition you need. It actually can send off a stress response in your body, and this can result in feeling anxious or depleted of energy. So eating a healthy diet can actually stabilize our mood throughout the day. One way we can counter this is by eating whole foods. So whole foods, basically, they're going to give us the nutrition and they help us stay fuller longer. So when I say whole foods, I'm talking about plant-based foods. So these are going to be beans, fruits, vegetables, grains, seeds, anything from a plant. So the benefits of whole foods are quite numerous. First of all, they contain all the essential vitamins and nutrients we need in our diet. And whole grains also have they're high in fiber. And I am such a fiber advocate. I'm always promoting fiber. I don't know, it's kind of weird. But as a country, we are fiber deficient. So women need 25 grams of fiber a day and men need 38. And the fiber we get in whole foods, it's going to do a few things for us. So first of all, it helps keep us fuller longer. This is going to help with the energy crash I talked about before. And fiber in whole foods also have an inflammation lowering effect on our bodies. And it's going to help us create a healthy diversity of microbes in our gut. And right now, the gut science, it's really fascinating. Our gut health actually plays a role in our immune system and our mental health. So if you're feeling like diet is something you want to work on rather than taking away like a traditional diet, just think of adding more fiber and whole foods to your diet as a way to start. And you'll find you just naturally are eating healthier because most whole foods are healthy. Sleep is very important. We all know this. We all know how we feel and function when we are sleep deprived. My one recommendation, if you are having a hard time with sleep, is creating some type of routine for yourself. It's summer, so it's light, so dimming the lights around 9 isn't really going to work. But just things like having your phone out of your room can make a really big difference. Or if you find you get really revved up when you look at your phone before bed, maybe don't do that. And kind of just at around 9 or 10 o'clock, do things that signal to your body it's time to sleep. Now I want to talk about some emotional and mental life skills to help us counter mental fatigue and burnout. And when I say life skills, I'm talking about things like mindfulness. So this is a skill to learn how to be more mindful when you're really dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. Or a skill like relaxation. So if you feel like you're in that really super hyped up place of stress, you can learn this skill to calm down. Or connecting with people, that's a skill. If you tend to self-isolate, you learn how to reach out and connect with other people. That can make you feel better. Or engaging in meaningful activities or hobbies, that's a skill, right? That can help you get out of your head or find some purpose and meaning. And so these skills help us in a lot of ways, but mostly they help calm us down and they help calm our brain down, which is really important because when we're in a place of stress, we tend to operate from our amygdala. This is the part of the brain kind of located in the back, and this is the part of the brain that reacts to stress and activates fight or flight. And when we think about for a moment how you act in a stressful situation, you don't really respond in the greatest way. And so we need to learn how to calm our brains down. And this gives us access to our more rational brain, our prefrontal cortex up here. And this is the more loving, compassionate, wise, rational brain. And we're going to just feel better when we're operating from this place. And we're going to treat people better, which is really important too. And so these skills, they're very important. They can help us change, like I said, change a perception. We can start maybe learning how to see the light rather than focusing on the darkness. They can help us find a sense of purpose and meaning if we're feeling helpless and hopeless, which I think a lot of us are feeling right now. And most of all, they help us relax. We can get out of these habitual negative responses, which is really important in times like these. And relaxing is really important. When we learn to relax, we engage our parasympathetic nervous system, and this is the opposite of fight or flight. So it's going, when we relax, our blood pressure is going to drop, our heart rate is going to decrease, and our breathing is going to slow down, which instantly calms down the body. Breathing is very important. It's a skill a lot of us have maybe forgotten when we're in a place of stress. The mind automatically associates certain breathing patterns with anxiety or calm. So if you're anxious, we tend to breathe from our chest and we take shallow breaths, and all that's doing is telling our brain we're stressed out. So how we counter that is learning how to breathe, and most importantly, taking deep belly breaths. I've given some resources for some breathing exercises, but I find this one at the bottom. It's the 4-7-8 technique. Taking a deep breath and holding it and letting out a long exhale can be very relaxing. Now, things like body work, I mean yoga, tai chi, Pilates, martial arts. These techniques involve relaxed stretching, so you're putting your body under some type of stress while you're relaxing your mind at the same time. And this can become an experiential metaphor for life. It's this idea, if you can learn how to be calm in your body, even when you're experiencing mental distress, it's actually a discipline and a skill just to learn how to be okay with it, with the feelings of distress, I mean. And this is a really great link, Yoga with Adriene. There's a lot of good yoga, there's a lot of bad yoga, but I really recommend, if you're interested in yoga, to try out this link I've put up. Now, mindfulness is something we've all heard a lot about, and it's just a skill. Mindfulness helps us change the way we relate to our thoughts, and then we begin to understand that our thoughts are only temporary, and this is going to help us stay in the present rather than dwelling in the past or worrying about the future. And I think right now in this time, we're all kind of struggling with what's going to happen. So practicing some mindfulness is a really great way to bring us back to the here and now. And I'll give some resources, some other resources on mindfulness towards the end of this webinar. Now I want to talk about meaningful activities, and you might be wondering what the heck are meaningful activities. It's basically just playing for adults. Anthropologists have studied play in adults, sociologists, and they've said when under the right conditions, our hobbies and physical activities can become play when the activities are rewarding and when they also have some layers of meaning and personal significance. So if you're playing or engaging in a hobby that's voluntary, it's rewarding to you, it's engaging, it's imaginative. These simple hobbies or physical activities you like to do can turn into meaningful moments in your life that contribute to a greater sense of purpose. But I know a lot of us in our culture have a hard time taking a break and maybe feel like it's not even appropriate to take a break. So I'm here to say it's okay, and it might actually make you more productive. This is a really great book, Rest, Why You Get More Done When You Work Less by Alex Payne. And the central thesis of this book is that rest and meaningful activities can make our lives more productive, more creative, but it can make our lives also more rich and fulfilling. And he talks about how in our culture, rest is a skill we've forgotten. I think this is true for a lot of people. We get really busy, we have kids or whatever happens, we just don't take the time for ourselves. And he also talks about the importance of work-life balance, and I really like the way he frames it. So he has the term for work as providing us the means to live, while rest gives us meaning. So we really need a combination of both to be healthy, happy, productive adults in this world. So it's just really important, maybe take a moment if you've forgotten, if you don't take the time to engage in meaningful activities, what's your thing? What's engaging to you but relaxing at the same time? And when you're finished, you feel less irritated and more relaxed and in a better mood. So how do you rest? It can be hiking, gardening, climbing, knitting, hunting, puzzles, exercise. It's different for all of us. That's kind of life. That's what I've been saying. This is resiliency. What's your thing? What drives you? What motivates you? What makes you feel better? And there's no better time than now to start a hobby because we're just home more. We have a little more time. Now I want to talk about connection. And what I mean by this is connecting to other people to make us feel better if we're feeling like we're struggling, or connecting to nature. Remember, resilience is different for all of us. So what do you connect with? I think a lot of people in Utah, just in our beautiful surroundings, we love nature here. There's something about being immersed in nature. This can be the mountains, the ocean, a park, where you feel small. And I think that makes us feel good because we don't feel like our worries are so heavy, and it relaxes us. You might notice your ego drips away, or maybe you feel like you're a part of something bigger than yourselves. And there's a reason for this. Studies have shown that when we're in natural settings, our cortisol levels, which is our stress hormone, decrease by 12%. So if you have made that connection that nature makes you feel better, there's actually a very physiological component to that. And like being in nature decreases our stress hormones, like I just talked about, when we're with people, it increases all of our feel-good hormones. That's why we like being with other people. We are very social creatures. And one thing we do know is very few highly resilient people are that way in and by themselves. And we also know that our relationships in our life are very much impact our psychological and physical well-being. So I think right now during this time, it's more important than ever to reach out to loved ones, reach out to friends, people that make you feel good, people that make you feel happy. It's just a way to get out of our heads a little bit and to just connect with other people, make those face-to-face connections while socially distancing is really important. So I'm kind of going to wrap it up with some of these life skills I've been talking about. I had mentioned I want you to kind of focus on your strengths or weaknesses, and if you do feel like there's a weakness, like maybe you need to relax more, I'll use that as an example, and you're going to practice some breathing or some relaxation in your life. One thing we do know from the science and behavior change is you have to be able to observe even the slightest temporary change in how you feel. And what this is doing is creating awareness in yourself and what's happening with you. So you are able to make that connection. Oh, I'm feeling stressed out. I'm not feeling that great. And you breathe. And then after you feel a little bit better. And it's like, oh, I feel better. And even if that feeling of just a little more peace or whatever it is lasts only a second, you really need to congratulate yourself. Even if that feeling's just brief, because any change you're feeling within yourself is an indication you're on the right track and what you're doing is making a difference. This is basically just habit formation. The more you do something, the more repetitive the action is, the more you're just going to send that message to your mind and body that it's working. And then you'll automatically turn to breathing when you're stressed until you don't even think about it. And that's what you want. You just want these life skills to become habitual, so you turn to them when you are struggling, and then you just can get through the resiliency process even faster. If you have any questions about what I said today, just contact me. I have a whole bookshelf behind me with tons of books. If anything interests you, just let me know. But in the meantime, I do have some favorites. If you are interested in this idea of habit formation, creating some routine in your day, this is a really excellent book, Good Habits, Bad Habits by Wendy Woods. It's all evidence-based, a lot of really great research, and a really simple, easy read. If you're interested in making some improvements in your physical health, this is a fantastic book. Dean Ornish has been studying preventative medicine since the 60s, and there's recipes in here, exercises. He talks about this idea I've mentioned of, learning how to relax, connecting people we love, and he gives all the science and research of actually what these activities are doing to your body physiologically, which is quite fascinating. If you're finding you're struggling with some of the mental and emotional health stuff, maybe you do find it impossible to relax, or you do want to learn more about mindfulness, I recommend this book, Full Catastrophe Living by Jon Kabat-Zinn. He's one of the head researchers on mindfulness, and this is like thick Bible. It will give you all the resources, breathing activities you could ever need. And then this other book, Feeling Good, David Burns, he's a cognitive behavioral therapist. So if you are finding you're struggling more with some of the mental stuff I talked about, maybe just getting out of that negative feedback loop, rumination, or cynicism at work, these are some great activities you can use at home to kind of catch maybe some of your faulty negative thoughts you're having, and then how to move forward. Okay, and lastly, here's just some books if you're interested in how meaningful activities and hobbies can make us feel better. The Nature Fix by Florence Williams. She kind of gets into the physiology of nature and how it can help us and how it makes us feel better. And she also references Utah quite a bit, our landscape, which is pretty cool. And then I mentioned this book, Rest by Alex Pang. He's basically just talking about historical figures, current figures, and their hobbies and practices, and how engaging in different hobbies and rest has actually helped them become so successful. So it's actually kind of a cool perspective and a good book if you do struggle with taking a break. And so that's it. Thanks, you guys. I talked about a lot, but just to end, let's just focus from here on out, especially during this pandemic, on what we're doing with our time. How are we spending our time? And if you're engaging in things that are making you feel better and positive, do more of that. And pay attention if you're engaging in certain things that are making you feel worse. Maybe don't do those things so much anymore. I think how we spend our time in this pandemic is really important. So just try to focus on the positive and work on some of these skills I talked about. So thanks so much. See you guys later.